Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 133 of Let's Play. And today we have Ocean and Jacqui.
Hello.
Hi there.
Yeah. So last time we ended off with a appropriate/inappropriate joke where Sam just can't get herself to say, "Can you come in?" Oh, this poor girl, so shy. I love it. I love all the innuendo, and I love like Charles's little smirk on his face. It's so sweet. It's like a little bit teasing her, a little bit like, "You're so adorable," you know.
The naivety of just not even being able to say that in front of him. Just
Yeah, it's funny because when I met my husband, like I had grown up very religious and he had not, so he would make tons of sexual jokes and I was like not used to it at all, especially because my dad was like very, very clean. Like I never heard a sexual joke come out of his mouth ever. So like I was so not used to it, but now I make the sexual jokes too, and he's like, "What happened to you?" I'm like, "I lived with you for 11 years, that's what."
That's so cute. I love that.
Mm-hmm. So she finally like gets around it, enter my apartment, and he like does his whole, "I'll be sexy and intimidating" thing, and like leans into her and it's like, "I would love to." So deliberate on his part. So, and now we are continuing, and she's like, "Oh, is it okay?" He asks, "Is it okay if I just set him down?" Because he doesn't really seem to know what to do with dogs. And she's like, "Yeah, of course. Here you are, little chap. He will whoops, I totally forgot to look that up. Let me Google that right now." Did you guys Google what it means?
I did not. I should have though.
Okay, well, here we go. Google Translate. Wow, I don't even know how you would begin to pronounce this. I think last time I said I would look up some Welsh and like how you say it, and it means
Welsh accents.
Yeah, and I still didn't do it. It means bye for now. Okay, cool. Fine. Okay, I really have to make myself reminder to self tomorrow, spend like 5 minutes at least watching Welsh accents.
It's worth it.
Yeah. Okay, so you have heard the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you have an accent down that you could
Oh, absolutely not. I was talking about just last week about how like the Welsh accent is almost impossible to imitate. Like it is so unique and rich in like it's not like London, it's not like not London, it's not like England, it's not like Scottish. It's very like its own thing.
Nice. Maybe next time I'm in Europe I can visit there. I was actually originally going to land in Dublin and do that whole like Great Britain stuff, but then they changed the schedule and I had to rebook, and I was like, I ended up rebooking for a place that was half the price, so to go to Lisbon. So I saved myself a lot of money. So she's like, "Oh, thanks for carrying him up here, Charles. He usually doesn't like to be held by strangers," which is like, of course, a sign from heaven that they're meant to be.
Yeah.
A sign from Bowser, at least.
He ships charm too.
Yep. Listen to the dog. And I think he's shaking his hand to clean it. Is that what you think he's doing?
Like to get all the excess dog hair off, maybe. Or like patting off his shirt with the dog hair. All I know is that's what I do every time I leave the house.
Yeah. And that would be very in character for Charles, because he seems like a very put together guy who likes to be, appear presentable at all times.
Very prim and proper.
Yeah.
Sweet. And then Sam's like, "Would it be okay if I change my clothes real quick?" And she has a little blush on her face as she says this. And Charles, oh my God, he does the one eyebrow raise. Okay, I swear I shouldn't be thinking these thoughts, but I'm like, he's like super attractive. I think he's a freaking cartoon character, but oh well. He is quite alluring. And he's like, "Would you like some help?" I love it.
You knew like he was going to, like she set him up for that one.
Oh yeah.
I'm just impressed that like she's able to hold her cool this time and not do like an insane blushometer where it's just
Daddy Young is like, I must rescue her.
exactly.
Oh,
Well, it's
he's so
like
funny.
training, right? You know, when she's doing training with other things, she's getting slightly used to it.
Yes.
Just some
Mhm.
exposure therapy over time. She'll get used to flirting.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, but she does blush, and he's stepping towards her, and then he lifts up her bag, and she is looking away, and she's like, again, getting redder and redder. And she thinks to herself, is he actually going to undress me? And then he drops the bag, and Ocean, you can take over.
All right. He places his hand. I would say that is her bum. You know, that area where it's your back slash butt, you know. And he says,
Yeah,
don't look so nervous, Bunty.
and his hand is so big, and she's kind of petite, so like it covers quite a lot. It covers her stomach and hip and beginning of the bum.
But
Sam
also,
is
I'm just impressed that Sam is darker than Charles. Like, that's an interesting, like, she's just more tan. I don't know. I was like, they're so cute.
Yeah. So Jacqui, when I was in Holland, no, when my husband was in Holland last time he was here, they were talking about my son and his skin tone versus my daughter, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Chava is light like you, and Shimshon is dark like Mindy." And I'm like, I have never been called dark in my life, unless you go to Dutchland where they're all pink and super white. Then yeah, I guess according to them, I am dark skinned. But we thought it was hilarious.
Well, no, I just think it's really, I don't know. It's one of those like little minute details that I think Monji has, and it just gives me all the warm fuzzies. That one panel especially.
Aw.
It's so cute. So yeah, he says, don't look so nervous, Bunty. And he lifts her head and he says, I'm only teasing you. Oh my God. Because you can start breathing again. And Sam takes a long, slow breath, and you see sheep going everywhere. Those like her pups. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Well,
what's
it's
the-
also because Bunty means like sheep in like it's a term for sheep in Welsh, and so that's why like you see Sam thinking of sheep. I think in the I don't know if it's Sam or if it's also Charles thinking of these imaginary sheep, but
Aw.
That is
But
adorable.
and he looks so infatuated with her. You know, I know he likes to pretend that he doesn't want a relationship, but first of all, the fact that he's treating her this way is a sign. But he's just always so intent on her, and like the expressions that he gives her, he is clearly, you know, I'm not gonna say in love, but he
enthralled.
likes her a lot, and he's like willing to do a lot for her. I mean, at least in this stage. I think personally that he's going to end up running away real fast because he's going to be scared off by how much he likes her. But it's just crazy to me. And it also is just a very big reminder of like that infatuation in the beginning of a relationship, because, you know, I remember having this in, you know, when my husband and I first met, and, you know, the relationship develops very differently over, you know, 12 years later. Like I would never be this lovey-dovey anymore. You know, we have a much more like practical and like low-key kind of like affection. Like it's much more day to day, and it doesn't have these crazy highs anymore. It's just like, oh, we like each other a lot. Like it's nice to spend time with you. And I know, like, I don't know if that people will find that disappointing, but yeah, it just reminded, like, he's at the stage where he's just like really, really, really into her.
Definitely the honeymoon phase right now between the two of them, just getting to know each other, getting to know their likes, their dislikes. And I mean, that's kind of referenced later down in the comic, right? So you get to see a little bit of their true personality shine, where they're not just trying to front for each other.
Yeah, no, definitely. Part of me like worries too because you know how Charles changes his personality depending on like who he's with. Like he's much more like serious and like more blunt with Ava. Like, I wonder if he's like this with Sam because he knows that she needs that in a partner at the moment. So
Right. So that is worrying, because if he can be so brutal with other people, who's to say that he won't end up being that way sometimes to Sam? I mean, it also could be that those women bring out the worst in him. Like, not every personality brings out the best in each other. And it does make sense that Sam does bring out the best in him. But yeah, it's like, my mother would always say, you should judge a person by how he treats those closest to him. So like how a person treats their family. And because they see them every single day and like they can get annoyed, right? So if they still treat them well, like it's a good sign. And like, yeah, for me, it would be super important to know that the guy I'm with treats everybody nicely, right? Like, you can't just treat me nicely. That's not good enough. You have to be a nice person. So I don't think Charles's behavior to Ava, Miss Rosewood, was abusive, but I wouldn't say it was particularly nice.
yeah, even in the last chapter, Marshall was there and he was just like, oh, I'm so sad your puppy doesn't like me. And he's just like, he just doesn't like you. Like, brutal. That was so savage of him.
Yep, I do worry that Charles being able to like mold himself to each situation, very manipulative, but I hope that it's like Sam's pure and like kind heart wins him over, because I love them together. And so it's worrying to me that this isn't the end, right?
Yeah. But I mean, I guess that's also, the point of the story, is to see people's development. And, I'm glad that we're discussing it, because especially I do think that some people are willing to overlook some things for the sake of romance, and some things should not be overlooked. So it's definitely something that at the very least should be considered.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that last chapter, that was like, that kind of bothered Sam when he was so blunt. So I think that's probably something they're going to have to work on in the future.
Yeah.
Let's talk about. But yeah, so she takes her long, slow breath and she says, why do you always tease me, Charles? And he says, because I like the cute faces you make. They're
Also
so
like
with her.
hella sexual, right?
yes.
Yeah. Oh, this chapter was super sexual. Yes.
Without it being overtly sexual, like the tension, the buildup, the innuendo. Oh,
Yeah. It was definitely, my heart was going that little warm mushy thing that it does.
He's definitely a master flirt. That's what that is.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And I think he genuinely means it. And like the fact that he's able to say, I like the cute faces you make, for many people don't find it easy to admit their feelings and to be open and expressive to someone. But Charles seems to be able to do it quite easily to Sam, much more than he does to anyone else. And like, I'm honestly surprised at his ability to tell her the truth like this, because he told her before, oh, I don't want a relationship, but he's telling her all kinds of things that are not just about having sex. He's like, oh, and I have my needs and you have your needs, we'll accommodate each other. But it doesn't sound like it's just a transactional relationship here. He's giving her compliments and being very personal. So I don't know if he's quite aware of how much he's giving away.
That's true. I wonder if he's even like aware if like, how like we can see the hearts and like his is melting. I wonder if he's even like aware of that, or if it's just kind of like happening so gradually, like he doesn't even notice.
I do remember one of the panels in the previous season where he basically like that whole heart thing happens and then the rings kind of snap and he's like, fuck, right? And I think he does realize that he definitely has feelings, but I don't think he knows how bad like he's falling for her and how much he's willing to give up in order to be with her. So like that phone call with the rival business and like he's like, oh, I've got a good thing going here, but then looks at Sam, right? And it's just like the double meaning of that, with not just the company with Sam's dad, but also with her. And then, we see that kind of devolve and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my theory is that we'll see him, you know, develop feelings, and then run away out of fear and take that job offer. And then, you know, something will happen, some realization, some encounter, I don't know, something will happen to Sam and he'll come running back.
Oh my gosh, my heart. That
I know, right?
no.
It
I
hasn't
know,
even
I'm not
happened
ready
yet,
for
I'm
that.
already affected.
Oh, I'm just gonna enjoy this for now while we have them together here. I don't even know if that's happening yet, and it hurts my heart. Okay, but he says, if I didn't know any better, I would say that you look disappointed that I was only teasing you about undressing you. Am I wrong?
Mhm. And Sam's eyes have gone red again. They're like back to the I'm like in heat color.
Yes.
Like biting her lip and like, yeah, girl, you're disappointed.
She,
I'm
like, realized-
disappointed for her.
My gosh, yes. This whole scene was ultimately it was disappointing in that sense.
Mhm.
It's so cute. She like hides her blushing face. And we get Sam's inner dialogue, and she says, he always knows how to make me blush, and I keep falling for it.
Yeah, and
And
I
she
like how she, you know, she's not yet able to express herself in words, but she is quite, I think, able to express herself with touch. And I think somebody mentioned, I don't know if it was you, Jacqui, that her love language is touch.
I agree, but I don't think I was the one to notice that. But now that you mention it, it very much does seem like that.
Yeah,
And
it's
quality
nice.
time.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, to me, it's just odd. Like I'm much more, I guess, of a verbal person. So I would be like talking before I would be doing like touching. But it seems like instead of saying, yes, Charles, I agree, she just goes to hug him, you know, that's kind of her way of communicating.
And then in that panel though, like he has his hand on her neck, like cradling her in, and then like pulling her all close.
He loves it. He loves it. Don't deny it, Charles.
It's so sweet. But yeah, Sam's just like, he smells amazing, and his heart is beating so slow and strong, while mine is beating like a fluttering bird's.
Oh.
And
Did you
you
guys
see
think of
his
the line she said
hands
before? She's
tied-
like, your Welsh tits smell amazing. I definitely thought of that.
Yes, that's so funny. Um, but yeah, he's sliding his hand up, and she said, he's holding me so delicately, like he's afraid I'll break.
Mhm. Yeah, and
And
he's
then
definitely like taking the next step, you know, he's picking her shirt up a little. So he has got the hots for her, my friends.
I know he's teasing her, but I think he's ready to go too.
He's
Mhm.
acting on all sorts of impulses.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you know, I like how Sam likes the fact that she calls out that his heart is beating so slow and strong. I mean, it's a trope, yes, but obviously it's a trope for a reason that a lot of women like, you know, the strong man and like the delicate woman. And you know, Sam is there for like, you know, Charles is a pretty confident person and she does not feel confident about herself in many ways. So, you know, I think that's a big part of her attraction to Charles is that confidence that he compliments in her. And yeah, so like, you know, her leaning against him and feeling that confidence in him as him being, you know, a little bit more of like the mentor figure, both professionally and sexually, is something that is appealing for her, which is also interesting because, you know, not every personality is attracted to different kinds of dynamics in a relationship. And I personally, this is not my thing. You know, I'm very much I like to be dominant or like at very least egalitarian. I'm not into like a strong man to swoop me up, but I do appreciate seeing that there's room for all different kinds of relationships. And I think it's important because one of the things I noticed, like I read a lot of like webtoon opinion things, you know, like this Instagram page, and I read a lot of the comments, and I feel like people are quick to dismiss this kind of dynamic as being unequal. And they they have criticism, which some of which I definitely understand about their dynamic, but I also think that you have to understand that everyone likes different things, and that sometimes people want to have an older, more experienced man for a relationship. And, I think that my husband chose me because I'm very dominant and in control. And you can say, oh, that's emasculating, or that's, an unfair dynamic, but that's what he wanted. And, it clicked very well with what I needed as well. So you can't, I think you have to also know not to criticize people for what their emotional needs are. It's not all necessarily 100% equal in every way in a relationship.
And I also think there's room to like relationships while not wanting that for yourself, right? And so that one thing that's nice about webcomics, comics, and just really any type of storytelling medium, we get to experience these things without having to actually commit to them. So like I don't have to be with Charles, but I can enjoy seeing Sam with Charles, right? And like even though I'm not necessarily I like Smash. I don't ship Smash, but I respect those who do. But like you get to experience that through that coupling, right? Even if you don't necessarily like that for yourself or your relationship. So I'd like the different because you have like the friends and how they are all together and how they interact, and then like their guild group, which is a lot of fun, and like watching their interactions with each other. And then like we were talking about last week in Dallas's relationships and how complicated those all are. Manji, I think, does a good job of illustrating that for us. It's not just about a comic about people, playing video games. It's so much more than that with the relationship dynamics.
Yeah, no, and I think that like plays out really well too, because her like tenderness and like her like frailty is really unattractive to Link. Like he even says to her like, I don't find you attractive, but I think that that's more endearing to Charles, and he kind of likes that about Sam.
And it would also make sense why Link would then go to Angela, right? Like
right. Yeah,
the absolute brute strength, strong in mind and body, like, and it's the opposite of Sam. But then Angela and Sam's relationship is so good because of that. Like they complement each other well. And I don't know, Charles is a dark horse there. I don't know how necessarily he'll play into that, like the friendship group, but.
Yeah, that is such a good point. And that really highlights, with Lincoln being attracted to Angela, that really highlights how like different strokes for different folks. And, I'm sure many of us have had friends where like, why are you into that guy? Right. But it works for them. So.
Yeah, like at times I don't understand. I'm blanking on her name right now, but Glitz Kitten, Monica.
Yeah, right.
Monica and Marshall's relationship, because to me she like belittles him so frequently, and it makes me upset. And she like doesn't like his beard, doesn't like his hair, doesn't like his he feels like he always has to work out to keep up with her, and that whole power dynamic I think that's there. So
that's so funny that's your perspective. I love hearing other people's, because I love Monica. She's my favorite character. I'm super like shipping her and Marshall together, because I feel like she's very good about expressing what she wants, and like she can tell you what she likes, and you don't necessarily have to change it. But I really like that about their relationship. Just her confidence in general, like to be able to say like, hey, like I don't like this, or I really like that. I just love that about Monica.
And I will say, I like Monica as a person. I think that their relationship with Marshall being such a people pleaser, and he is, and we saw in the last few chapters, he has always been a people pleaser. He has never felt the need to like differentiate himself from that idea of I have to be nice and I have to like get people to laugh, or I have to be enjoyable for people for them to stay around me. And then you have a sister who kind of went the opposite way. Like, I want to be as unenjoyable as possible.
Yeah. So Jacqui, listening to you talk, it really reminds me of my husband and I's relationship, or maybe our like previous iteration of it, because, I was very, very dominant in many ways. I did walk all over him in some ways, and it's a two-way street. So I just have to say that, because both Marshall and my husband didn't stand up for themselves. So I have to learn to take a step back, you know, not to be bossy, critical, demeaning. And he had to learn to stand up for himself and maybe be a little less passive, more active. And it's, you know, this is the kind of thing that I realized, it was a very big realization for me in my own marriage, that people are attracted to each other for both the good traits, but also the bad traits about each other, because we both have our weaknesses, and our weaknesses also are complementary. My weakness was that I'm very dominant. His weakness is that he's very passive. And he looked for someone who was dominant, and I looked for someone who was passive unconsciously, because we couldn't really get along with, I think, people who were not that way. And, you know, we obviously had a whole long list of other things that make us compatible, you know, values, intellectual interests, religious perspective, blah, 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 long list. But like, there's also the very inherent personality match. And it took me a long time to realize that. So it's not something that can be extracted. Like, you can't, I realized you can't, for a while I felt very, very guilty because I didn't like my behavior when I realized that it was wrong. But then I also realized that it was impossible to extract from the good parts of our relationship, because that was just who we are. So I really see what you're saying with Monica. Like, I totally relate, because I feel like that, and I totally understand her and him, and they both need to work on that. But that's probably, they probably like each other because of that as well. Monica probably wants a softie who's not dominant and who will let her be, you know, the more bossy one. And Marshall probably needs someone to kind of coddle him in a way and like be his mommy in a way, even though it seems like he has a nice mom. So anyway, these are, it's probably speculations we should do in a more Marshall oriented episode.
Yeah, it's good to devolve.
All right, so picking back up, he looks really worried here. And he says, "Do you want me to stop teasing you, Samara? But if it makes you unhappy, then I'll stop." And she says, "No, you don't have to stop. I tease too, but you always know how to make me blush." And I couldn't tell about her face right here. She seems like slightly like agitated or like concerned, like, I don't know. What do you think? She has like the little sweat drop there, and her eyebrows are up kind of.
Yeah, I read it as like she's frustrated because she's like, well, you know, I tease too, but you've like, he's unflappable, right? He's never missed a beat. It's just he takes it all in stride. And whereas she gets stopped up and like, you know, stops thinking for a second, mind goes blank and just immediately goes into the blush and the, you know, swoon almost. I guess that's probably the best word to place there. And she's like, you know, I can't tease you as well to make you blush. And I think that's a lot of frustration on her part.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, maybe.
she explicitly was thinking that before, where she's like, is there anything I can do to make his heart flutter? She doesn't want it to be a one-sided relationship. And I think that's very Sam also. She's not a taker, she's a giver. And she wants this to be reciprocal, because it's also, besides for like being, you know, just general fairness, I think it's a matter of pride for her. Like, she wouldn't feel like, you know, like a woman, or like she's, or like she's attractive if he was just doing it for her rather than getting anything out of it himself, right? It doesn't feel good if the guy is like, oh, here you are, I'm doing it all for you, and not liking it. You know, you want the guy to like it. You want him to get pleasure too. Otherwise, you know, like, what's wrong with me?
That's so true. That must be like kind of like a little bit off-putting too, to just know that he's so calm and like used to it. This like heart is just beating regularly while she's so nervous. Although I guess that is to be expected when this is like her first time really having this kind of relationship too.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Is that such a bad thing? You're cute when you blush."
Aww.
She seems a lot happier here. She says she thinks I look cute.
Well, it's also so bad on Charles to like that she gets so excited about that small compliment. I'm like, Charles, say more to her.
No, I'm sure he will. Well, I think he'll say, well, yeah, I think he'll say more, and then he'll like skedaddle.
Oh, Charles. I mean, he does like pretty good in like their confidence building, like saying like, "Samara, you're a beautiful, strong young woman, like stand up straight. Like, I think it's just like the different setting of it, you know? But yeah, he apologizes for leaving a hickey on her neck and saying he didn't think he bit her that hard. And then I think he's just checking the boundaries here. Like, should I be more careful? Like, is this something you're comfortable with? Is it not? And
Yeah,
I think
he's quite very mature and responsible. You know, it's an antidote to an attitude that I haven't seen personally because I'm not in the field, but like, you know, we hear a lot about young men who are like, take no responsibility for their actions. And Charles is very much the opposite. He's very mature, very respectful, very gentlemanly.
Yeah, no, I think Monkey does like a really great job of like keeping his character true. I just listened to the Joe Rochelle like Girl Wonder podcast episode where she did the interview with Monkey, and just saying like the cliffhanger was meant to be that question of, is Charles actually a gentleman? And I think she did that really well, and she followed through with that. So that was super exciting. And she says, "It's okay, Charles. It's not that I didn't like you biting my neck. I'm just embarrassed people could see a mark." And then she asks, "Don't you think it's embarrassing? People might get an idea of what we did." And this is kind of when he like pulls away from her.
Yeah, and that look on that set of his mouth in that panel where she's like, "Don't you think it's embarrassing?" To me, that shows it's like him thinking, wait, are you embarrassed of me? Like, you don't want people, you're not proud of me? Like, you wouldn't want to be in a relationship with me?
That's exactly what I thought too. And I was like, and it's really just reading the signals wrong. 'Cause she's saying like it's embarrassing that people would look at us and then realize what we had done, because there's obviously a very visible mark on her neck. Whereas I think he is reading it as like people might get an idea of what we did, and she's implying that because it was with him.
Right.
I wonder if that's like. Go ahead. Oh, I was gonna say, I wonder if that was like ties back to his insecurities with his ex-wife. Like if she used to say things like that, like, "Oh, that's embarrassing. Like, don't do that." You know, things like that. Like.
Yeah. And also it definitely makes sense in light of their different sexual experiences, because she is just embarrassed about the concept of having sex or doing anything sexual. He at this point, that's fine. He's like, I don't care if people know I had sex. Like, I'm a human being. Of course I had sex, you know, but so that would make sense that they would interpret that line differently. Poor baby. Feel bad for him. Yeah, I guess Jacqui, this would probably be a good place for you to take over.
Sure. So then he goes, "Actually, Bunty," as he goes to lift his hand off of the place that he had it on her back. And then he kind of clenches his fist a bit. And you can really see that the frustration is beginning to take its toll. Like he's about to start to say his displeasure with that comment, or, you know, the words left unspoken just drive me crazy, because I'm like, what were you going to say? Just tell her.
What do you think he was going to say?
I think he was going to say, "No, I don't find it embarrassing. I would love to like strut you around, show you off to everybody." Because like, I think Charles is proud of her. I think that he's very much like that type of person to not hide a relationship, not, you know, keep it secret. But like you were saying, he's also sexually experienced, so he knows that in reality no one's looking at them. No one cares. Everyone does it. And so I think that her inexperience in this moment is frustrating him just a little bit. But then he goes, on second thought, as he kind of like brushes off his collar, my opinion doesn't matter. And I'm like, but it does. It's okay. What matters is you don't like it. And so he's turning away, and Sam goes, "Why did you turn away? Did I do something wrong?" And Charles, you know, just looking very open. I don't know how to describe that look, but in my mind, it's like, emotionally hurt, vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally brushing her away.
Yeah,
like you brushed the dog hairs off. That's painful.
Yeah, and I took that as like he was really like closing himself off. Like he had like really opened himself up to her before and like literally took her in his arms. And then when she said that, he's just like back turned, like he put up that wall and he's done.
Yeah, because he realized how much he likes her. When he was about to say, actually, no, I really like you. I'm not embarrassed of you at all. That's too much for him. He has to shut down and run away. He can't handle the truth.
Yep. And he goes, no, not at all. You didn't do anything wrong. But I told you this morning I should take things slower. And I felt my enthusiasm rising.
Hint, hint.
I don't want
Shift.
to,
Yeah.
right. But I don't want to overwhelm you again. And so,
Yeah,
I think
he doesn't want to
he's-
overwhelm himself.
yeah, and I think he's kind of buying himself time with that, right? Like he doesn't want to be emotionally open, so he's going with like the physical reaction that he has towards her and using that as an excuse rather than to say what he was actually feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
he's
he
like
can't even look her in the
reverting back to, like-
face.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I feel like he's like reverting back to like his other relationships with like Ava and Miss Rose, where he's just like, oh, this is purely sexual. Like I have no feelings in this. Like there's no gains or well, there's gains, but there's no losses to this kind of relationship.
Exactly. And then as he still turned away, not facing her, thinking about us this morning, the sounds you made and the way you felt, I would be torturing myself if I didn't step away from you. And it's like, again, relying on that physical reaction rather than delving into, I think, the more emotional side of the conversation. But either way, I mean, he's allowed to have those physical reactions.
Yeah, at least Sam, I hope, can take that as like a sign that it's not just one-sided for him. So maybe she can get a little bit of happiness out of hearing that.
I mean, I hear that and I'm like, I'm so hot. I turn a man on just by looking at him. Like, you don't even do anything, Sam. He's just like, oh, I want to jump your bones.
Mhm.
But
And then the next panel is, I have also given it some thought, our interactions. And Sam's just like, she looks super worried here. Like, this is the moment the other shoe's going to drop. He's going to like cut it all off.
And by the way, this is like, they only discussed this yesterday, like in the car. So when did this was on his mind a lot. The fact that he was managed to give it thought in between like yesterday and now.
Definitely in bed while he realizes that she's in the room next door.
or as he cuddled her all night long.
Right? For the time being, I think it's best if you are the one to make the physical advancements, and that way I defer, and that I defer for the meanwhile. And so he's not going to be the one pressing forward and, you know, trying to interact and lift her shirt up a little bit on the sly. And then she's, you know, obviously not happy with this development. What? Me? Charles, you know how shy I am, as we've seen multiple interactions in all the previous comics about how she really struggles to stand up for herself.
Mhm. And this is actually brilliant because I do think that part of it is, a large part of it is Charles's insecurity and his unwillingness to be, you know, emotionally available. But I do think that his strategy is actually perfect. And he goes into why.
I think it's coming from Charles, though. I think it's a fear of rejection. So he doesn't want to advance only for her to turn him down. I don't think he can handle that. And so he's like, well, I'll just put it all on you and say I'm helping you. And then I don't have to feel bad if I make you feel uncomfortable and then you say to stop.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. 100% true. And also he gets to maintain the teacher-student relationship where he's like, this is all for your good, not for me at all. Yeah. But I still do think it's going to be very good for Sam. You know, here's what I'm talking about, right? With the people's weaknesses also complementing each other. So he's doing avoidance, but at the same time, it is actually helping her. I think it should help her.
I'm actually pretty excited about this. I feel like this is going to be great for Sam to like just like learn how to like, if you want something, you need to just go and do it. Like you need to go grab that man if you want that man. Like I'm really excited to see bold Samara.
Yeah, what is she going to do? And she's probably going to be like, Charles, what do I do now? What do I do now? And I can't wait to see his reaction.
Well, I am hesitant about this whole strategy once her dad gets back, because I'm worried that like that whole factor that kind of plays into their relationship, whether or not she's going to feel comfortable, asking Charles to do something, or being around him with her dad right next door, or hovering.
Yeah, I do not want the dad to come back. Dad, please stay in Hawaii. Don't interfere with Charles and Sam's love life, please.
I don't think they'll be doing that in the office though. I feel like Charles is very professional, and like I feel like those
you say that, but that's where they shared their first kiss, so
okay, that's true. That is true. I mean, if they're gonna have this type of relationship, they have to set some kind of boundaries though, like no kissing in the office.
What did he say? Dipping the pen in the company ink.
Right. That's a very specific analogy. Anyway. Yeah, there's many odd tropes about the office that can happen in this comic.
Oh, I love all of them. Like I said, the CEO trope is one of my favorites. But then he sits down on her counter and goes, "You are correct. I do know how shy you are, but I have also seen when you want something bad enough, you find the strength and courage to go for it." And so it's like, yeah, she's going to find her strength and courage to want Charles enough.
She wants him. Yeah, she already wants it. So she just has to take that next step.
Yep.
I think she's going to find that Irish cream. That's what she's going to do. Her liquid courage.
Right, again.
Yeah.
Start drinking.
And then I think this will be a good confidence building exercise for you. I won't run the risk of having you do anything you're not comfortable with, given that you will be setting the limits. So that way, they both maintain good boundaries in the relationship. But Sam, all she's thinking is bananas and unpeeling bananas in the background. And
I literally did not even notice that.
Either. You just made that up.
No, the imagery there is crazy. Like she's thinking like, I'm gonna have to unwrap the thing. Oh God.
Yeah, I can see that. Oh my gosh. This whole thing is reminding me of when I first started having sex with my husband. It was a lot of all this like awkwardness.
And just like her mind is immediately in the gutter. Like just instantly like, oh God, what am I gonna have to do now?
Yeah, I can see that. It's scary. It's a little intimidating first time. Mm-hmm.
Unwrapping your banana for the first time.
You gotta peel back those layers, right? As Charles said, do you need help undressing? But what about you? You said the accommodation goes both ways. Sam's talking to Charles. What if you need something from me? Obviously she's thinking this through of the relationship does seem kind of one-sided, with just her making the request instead of both him and Sam. But she's obviously very nervous about this whole turn in the relationship. She's trembling. She's got that sweat mark on her face again. Obviously she hasn't stopped blushing this entire time, so best of luck with her blood pressure. And he goes, I appreciate your concern, Bunty, but I will be fine. And again, Charles is holding all the cards in that relationship. Don't worry yourself over my needs. And Sam looks away, obviously worrying about his needs and what that means for her.
Yeah, I think what he means by that is like basically like I don't really need you, like I can take care of myself, which probably is a little bit sad for Sam because she's at the stage where like her sexuality is finally awakening. I don't know if she satisfied herself in any way before her sexual awakening. It could be that she just wasn't interested, but now that she is starting to have sexual desires, you know, I think she definitely clearly wants to have it with another person. She doesn't want to just have herself. And Charles is like, yeah, I don't need you. Like, I can handle it myself, or maybe with the Rosewoods, you know, or Eva. But I think it might be a little bit also sad for her to hear that, you know, that he doesn't need her like she needs him.
Mhm.
Do you guys think that he's going to cut off his other relationships with Miss Rosewood and Eva for good?
Yeah,
for
I
now?
do.
I think Eva's already been cut off. And then Rosewood, he has shown in other episodes that he is absolutely willing to reject her to be able to be with Sam.
Mhm.
So I think that the relationships, or if you would call even the hookups, booty calls, I think he won't have them. But I do think that Sam will find that intimidating,
Mhm.
knowing that she is not the first, but one of many,
Yeah, it definitely will.
and not necessarily special. I kind of struggle with that word, but
Mhm. Yeah, I also think that, I mean, I think it's very possible that we'll have a scene where Charles will be like, want to call Miss Rosewood, and then he'll like kind of start, and then he'll realize that he just can't, like he doesn't want her anymore. Like he only wants Sam. And that might even be like the triggering point where he's like, okay, I gotta run to England. But yeah, I think
And-
intellectually he won't really make that choice, but then emotionally he'll find that he just doesn't want to sleep with her, with anyone else but
Exactly.
Sam.
but he goes, I should hit the road. I have a number of errands to run today. You should get some rest, Bunty. You had a rough night last night. I will be here Monday morning to take you to work, as he's turning around and leaving. Take me to work, but I take the bus. I'm very confused. Is my company so bad that you would rather take public transportation than allow me to chauffeur you to the office? And I think this is where he starts to get into relationship territory, right? And wants to spend more time with her, but also wants to like have her on his arm as they're walking in the office together, show off that like, I've got the girl.
Yeah, and I think it's also, there's a dimension to him that likes to be maybe the knight in shining armor. And, you know, this is where, again, talking about the interlocking weaknesses, there will come a point where Sam will kind of take on her wings and will be able to outgrow him to a dimension. And I think that Charles will have to re-examine their relationship and will have to do some growing on his own. Because right now he's probably deriving a lot of emotional satisfaction from the fact that he's helping her and he's helping her grow and become better. And it sure feels great. You know, it's like, oh, I'm the knight in shining armor. I'm the savior. I'm like so capable, right? It must feel really good to feel that way about yourself. And at the point where Sam will be ready to, you know, fly, he'll be like, what's my purpose? What's my need? And I think that he'll have to readjust and recalibrate their relationship at that point, which I think that's way in the future. That's when they're already like actually in a relationship. But yeah, like this side of him, this conversation just shows that he has that side to him where he wants to take care of her and protect her and do things for her.
Yeah, no, I really like the way he just like kind of like slyly dropped that in. You can even see he's smiling in the panel. All you can see is his smile. And he's just like, oh, and by the way, I'll be picking you up for work from now on.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know. I think like that's a really good point though, Mindy. And part of me wonders if he is drawn to Sam because he sees himself in her, like his old innocence and like his youthfulness and the way he used to feel with his wife. And if he just wants to help her, the way maybe no one else really helped him when he was that age, maybe.
Yeah, it's
I
very likely.
definitely see when in the next panel, because he says, besides while your father is away, I would like to make sure your safety is one less thing for him to worry about. I think he does like to take on that surrogate father type role where, you know, like not a daddy, right? But like of that type of mindset where you will patriarchal almost, you know, I'll protect you, I'll make sure that you're okay, but I want to make sure that you can take care of yourself going forward. Whereas her dad is very much like, I just want to hide you away and store you, like you're precious good and a resource that's valuable. Whereas Charles is like, no, I need you to rise.
Right. And it's also, I know that for me, for sure, I married someone with a temperament very, very similar to my father's. it's very possible that Sam clicks with that protective nature because her dad is like that. And that's what she's been getting her whole life. Her brother's like that. So it's very possible that that feels very natural to her. And that feels like, yeah, this is the right kind of relationship I want.
And also why the dad is so threatened by Charles, because he knows that.
Nice. Yes.
She's also drawn to those kind of friendships though, because even like Angela is very protective of her. Vicky is a
And
little
Vicky.
less.
Yeah,
She's, like, a
Vicky's
little
also,
bit less.
but she's emotionally protective, right? Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Also, does anyone else see Charles is like needing to run errands as like, okay, gotta bounce. I'm uncomfortable. This is too much for me. I gotta go.
I think it's also to remove himself from temptation in the situation, because like Sam is going to go get undressed and she is going to have to like go do her stuff throughout the day, and the temptation to want to follow her in and then, you know, not necessarily sneak a peek, but to act on that teasing earlier.
Mhm. The bed's right there. So yeah.
Well, they certainly had enough buildup. I mean, even the night before, they were snuggling all night, and he resisted then. He's resisting now. Like, he's been doing pretty good for himself, I think. I think it's best to just let her take a shower and do what she's gonna do by herself.
Right, because then yeah, he exits, see you soon, bye. He closes the door, and then she turns around and just absolutely sighs and is like, everything that happened today, and you get a full rundown of everything that's happened in the past 24 hours with her and Charles, and it was a lot for her to take in. You know, between the neck biting and the you know, she's obviously she's trembling in the next panel, but it's not like a, I don't think it's a nervous tremble, but it's more like a, you know, excited.
Yeah. Overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's, I mean, I don't know if everyone would have this reaction, but she is, I think, very sensitive and feels things very strongly.
But everything that's starting to sink in, and then we see flashbacks of, you know, their night together, and she's obviously still mulling this over. And I think she's doing the same thing that most of us tend to do after some emotionally charged situation, is you'll replay the same scenes over and over again and then psych yourself out. So you'll replay it and you're like, oh, what if I had done this instead? And you know, she's extrapolating all these scenarios and letting her mind wander into places of like, what if it was bad? And she's like, you know, Charles was right. I did get overwhelmed, and the flashbacks continue, and she's, you know, slumped down onto the ground, holding herself kind of together, and she's just saying, but I still wish he didn't stop. And you know, that right, like, just you can tell that she, in that tremble and that gasp, is much more of that excited, I think, by the end of the comic, or in the episode.
Yes, yes, yes. We like it. I'm happy that she's able to be honest with herself, because I think that I was surprised because she's very, very sexually inexperienced, and she has only recently expressed an interest in sex and even understood that. So the fact that she very, very quickly was like, I really, really want to have more. I think that is great that she's willing to admit that and not embarrassed.
Exactly.
I think that he really helped with that too, with all of like his confidence buildings, and like the fact that she's doing this with the person who really built up her confidence. And she's like more comfortable with him, and he's telling her like she's beautiful and she's strong. So it kind of makes sense that she's gonna feel that strong sexual desire for this person and wanna, you know, open herself up more to him.
Yeah. Yeah, so much. You know, it's funny because I thought that this was going to be a little bit of a shorter episode, but yeah, there's a lot to talk about with these people and relationships and psychology.
And the sexual innuendo.
Yeah. This is pretty explicit. Explicit without being crude.
I agree.
Yeah. Longy did a really good job with these. It's funny, out of all of the webtoons I read, I didn't really expect this one to be the one where it gets more sexual, I guess.
Yeah.
But she did it really well.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, I'll say this, that the reason that it reads as very sexual to me, at least, is because we have a very strong emotional attachment to the characters. Like when I read a more superficial webtoon where they're like, oh my God, you're the prince, I'm falling in love with you. And then they like go away on a couch together. I don't feel, it doesn't feel sexual to me because I'm not connected to the characters. But here I relate to them so strongly that it's as if it's me, right? And I feel those feels. I feel that like heart melting. And that's very rare to get me. I'm a little bit not jaded, but like I'm already 32 and I'm not like a teenager anymore. So like for me to feel that mushy gushy feeling in my heart is not so common anymore. So the fact that Manji has done this means that she's very effective in making us connect to the characters.
Yeah, I just love Sam so much. She's my little bean. I just want to swish her.
Well, thank you so much. Do you guys have any last thoughts to say?
I'm glad that last week I was proven wrong. I I am glad that it did not devolve into arguments or any type of conflict. I do think we saw the rising bit of conflict, but I'm glad that it was subdued for now. But I'm excited to see Sam ask for it next time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I'm excited to see how this develops, and I hope that Charles doesn't just like up and leave Sam and like break her heart. Like,
because Mindy, if you were right about that, I'm going to be so sad.
oh my gosh. Yeah, Mindy. Yeah.
I'm going to blame you.
Well, everyone has to go through sadness. Life would be unsatisfying if it was all sickly sweet. We need to have some pretzels and salt and bitterness in there to make it complete.
Right.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was fantastic. It was lovely, as usual, to share the discussion with you, and thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Mindy.
Thanks.
Bye.
Good night.